Okay, so the Washington Commanders elected to help out their offensive line in the first round. I think a lot of us are wondering, do they just feel okay about their cornerback room? Maybe, but they wanted to add another guy here, and I think Trey Amos could potentially be a starter for this team. I think the best case scenario is you have Mike Sanderstrill, you have Marshawn Lattimore, and you have Amos as your starting three, and then Jonathan Jones and Noah Igbenogany can come in as role players there. That's how I would want this to go. Again, we'll see if Lattimore can live up to, Saints Lattimore. I know he didn't play great last year, but also was coming off an injury, so we'll see how that all goes. But ultimately, for Amos, I think he's an awesome player, and I think this is an awesome pick. I can't believe he fell as far as he did. I don't fully understand it. He was a player who I was very high on in this draft class. So I don't know if, listen, usually when someone falls, the NFL, they're smart and they know what they're talking about, and a lot of times they're right about this stuff. But I don't know. I just think this guy has like a, potential to be a Carlton Davis type player. I don't know. I just really like him and think he's really good. So yeah, instead of me talking about that I like him, why don't I show you why I like him? So let's start off with a play like what you see on your screen. So this is going to be a zone coverage concept, and you see his zone is the one that I've circled in white. He is currently the player who is standing, actually not in that zone, but slightly in front of it, so slightly towards the left of the screen of it. You see the route that's going to get into that zone, so that's the one Amos is going to look towards. So watch, let's just let the play begin. You see right here, so as of right now, the receiver who's in his area is going to try and cut more over the middle, and this is one of the things I like about Amos is a physical player. Sometimes corners definitely do not want to do the dirty work. That is constantly, I don't know, a stereotype. People say it about certain corners making business decisions, things like that. That is not Trey Amos. He plays a physical style, watches to use contact, but also has the footwork to stick with the receiver that he's covering. And quite frankly, this is what you see a lot of from Trey Amos. He reminds me of Carlton Davis in that sense, of a guy who just is really good at making sure that he, will use his hands to get guys out of position and will hang with them, and he does a very good job at that. Heading over here, now this is maybe not the best play to use because, well, it is a one-on-one matchup on the outside. Also, this is, this really is just a decoy route, but still, the receiver seems to be trying, so I'll use it anyways. You see how this receiver is going to go out towards the outside, but you see Amos does a pretty good job at hanging with him right here. Again, you see the 4.43 speed, which is good. It isn't elite speed for a corner, right? It's good speed for sure. Like, there are faster quarterback prospects in this draft class, but also like this should work, and he tends to do a pretty good job at hanging with guys running routes like this. As you see, not really much separation that ends up happening there, and again, it was kind of a decoy route, so maybe the receiver would have done something differently had it not been a decoy route, but ultimately it's still a good example of showing what we can see from Trey Amos, which is what I like. Going over to this next play, so what's going to happen here is, again, I talked about the physicality. Well, let's talk about some run defense, why don't we? Now, listen, for a corner, usually the way I view run defense is you just want to not suck at it. Like, if you're, like, not great at this stuff, then I'm usually like, okay, that's fine, as long as you're okay and not a black hole, because if you're a black hole, teams will run the ball to your direction and essentially take you out of the game. Here, though, you're going to see Amos, he was the one who I had circled, obviously. He's going to do a good job of rushing it, and again, he plays physical. He's not afraid of contact, and that's what I like about him, because that stuff does matter. I know we typically just view corners as, okay, how well do you cover, which, fair enough, that is ultimately the most important aspect, but being someone who can do the little things tends to work. You want a guy who there isn't downsides to his game, and that is the case with Amos. Heading over to a play like this, so this is going to be a cover 2 zone right here, so you see where he's designed to cover, which usually sort of 5 to 15 yards down the field, but ultimately looks like it's more of a match pattern, which means that you can, if your receiver that's in your area is running a specific route, you can still kind of quote-unquote abandon your zone because you don't want to cover grass, you want to cover players. So watch how first off on this play, you're going to see, again, the hands at the line, just disrupting the receiver just enough to not let them get the clean release that they want. And at this point, you're also going to see how he can be very shifty. watch, this receiver's going to try and make a move, but it just doesn't work. Amos hangs with him the entire way. This is what Trey Amos is able to do. He's just, quite frankly, is in the area all the time. Like, even his losses don't feel like devastating losses. Something like this, where it's going to be, again, it's zone coverage, and this route is hard to defend against here, where it's a curl route, so you got to make sure you don't get beat deep. That's kind of your first responsibility if you are this corner. So when the play begins, you're going to see Amos is kind of doing that, making sure he doesn't get burned deep, and this is where you could argue the not blazing speed is an issue. Again, I want to be very clear, he is not a slow corner, but speed is a corner's number one attribute, and sometimes when you're not the fastest corner, you have to make a little bit more effort to make sure you don't get burned deep, which can leave you open more underneath. Here, that's kind of what happens, but ultimately, he does a pretty good job at closing on that play. So, like, again, okay, great routes and great throws are going to beat even great corners. Ultimately, he makes the life of the opposing team difficult, even on the plays that they're able to have success, and that's really what you want from a corner. Make their lives difficult when they execute perfectly, and make their lives impossible when they don't execute perfectly. And this is also something I really like about Trey Amos. So something like this, it's going to be, you see, it's a one-on-one matchup right here. So, okay, fair enough. But this is also zone coverage, and that's worth noting. When this play begins, you're going to see that for Amos. So, okay, receiver's running a route, trying to get past him. So, okay, well, what do you do if you're Amos? Well, it's a little bit difficult, right? Because the quarterback is behind you. If you want to turn your back and play to receiver, well, you can do that. But ideally in zone, you want to keep your eyes towards the quarterback. That's kind of what you're supposed to do. Amos is going to make sure that he covers the receiver, though, which ultimately is a decision I like. You see him pushing the receiver further back. At this point, that receiver is well past where Amos needs to cover, so Amos has done his job on this play. Ultimately, I think this is the correct decision. Here's the issue, is that on the other side of, I guess, right behind him, the ball is getting thrown to someone who's now underneath, and this could be an opportunity to gain a ton of yards. But Amos has not just said, okay, play over. Watch as he gets his head turned around, reads the play, and runs over and was in position to make a block, ultimately realized that he didn't need to, in position to make a tackle, ultimately realized he did not need to at that point. But again, the awareness, the understanding of his zone, the physicality, and his shiftiness, and still very good speed to be able to keep up with everybody. It's just a combination you don't see a ton of, which is why I do think that Trey Amos was a prospect that got a little bit slept on in this draft evaluation process, and I just think could be a really good player in the NFL. So ultimately, those are my thoughts on Trey Amos. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all, and of course, as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that video and want to hear more of my thoughts, well, for one thing, you can check out my movie channel. Yes, I have a movie channel. You can check the link in the description below. I do some fun things like some movie reviews, even some TV show reviews, tier list, fun things like that, so you can check that out. Also, make sure that you are subscribed and paying attention to this channel, as there will be plenty of draft content. I plan on making a video for every first round pick, many of the other picks throughout the draft, and also I will do recaps for each team after the draft is over. So I will eventually talk about every single pick from your favorite team. Be on the lookout for that, as it will be out this weekend. And also, if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me on Twitter. I am at Jackson Kruger, or X, whatever you prefer to call it. But yeah, that's all I got. Thanks again for watching till the end of the video.